Hello, this video is for paraprofessionals on how to use Zoom. If you do not have a Zoom account, you will need to go to zoom.us/education. I personally would suggest using the Google sign-in, just because then you don't have to create another username and password to remember. When you sign up for your Zoom account, make sure that you sign up using your school email address. If you already have a Zoom account, you're going to go to zoom.us and you're going to click Sign In. If you need to create an account, you'll want to go ahead and pause the video now and pause the video while you sign in. All right, now that you're signed in, we are going to go through some settings that you'll want to make sure are either on or off. If it's an optional setting, I will tell you that it's optional. So what you're going to do is on the left-hand side, under Personal, you're going to come down to Settings. And then you'll be on a page that has Meeting, Recording, and Telephone at the top. So we're going to start kind of backwards here. We're going to go to Telephone. And on here, the only thing that you want on is this mask phone number in the participant list. And you'll turn off Show International Numbers. Now we're going to click on Recording, which is in the middle up here. Now if you are going to record a meeting, there's certain things that you have to be aware of. One, you can't record with the student's face showing. And then you can't have the student's full name, so any personal identification. You'll want to talk with your teacher that you're working with to see if they want you to record if you're doing like a small group or a one-to-one. I'm guessing you guys probably won't need to record, so I would leave the settings as they are on your screen. And we're going to come up and we're going to click on Meeting. So as we go through this, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. We want the host video on, so then it automatically starts with your video. Participants' video should be off. The reason is the first one is a lot of video takes up a lot of bandwidth, and that's how fast the internet comes into the devices. So if you have a student that has internet, but it's not the greatest internet, the video may become choppy. So keeping the video off will help with that. Plus, with the FERPA and the SIPA compliance, you don't want to have any videos up if you have more than one student in there, just because of the fact that you want to make sure that there's nothing personal identifying with the student. So you want to make sure that when they enter, they only use their first name, maybe first name, last initial, and then they don't have their video on. Scrolling down a little bit more, on audio type, you're going to leave that as telephone and computer audio. So if a student doesn't have internet, they could still join the class by calling in. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Join before host should be off. That way then if students join the class before you have joined, they can't actually get inside your class. They're put into a little waiting area. We are going to have the use personal ID off, use personal ID for instant meeting off, require a password when scheduling new meetings on, require a password for instant meetings on, require a password for personal meetings off, embed password in meeting link for one-to-one on, require password for participants joining by phone off. The only reason we're having that off is you would have to update that password daily when you're going to hold your class. Mute participants upon entry, yes. We want to make sure that all students come in muted. just so there's not a lot of background noises. Upcoming meeting reminder, I have that as off. You can turn it on if you want. That one's optional. Require encryption is off. Chat is on. What this does is it allows students, this is how they can communicate in the classroom. They can ask questions this way. We'll checkmark prevent participants from saving chat and then click save. Private chat we're going to turn off. Private chat allows students to hold a separate chat amongst themselves, and you as the teacher would not know that, so that one's going to be off. Auto-saving chats is off by default, and since we're education, we automatically have our chats saved, so we don't have to worry about that. This one is optional, but I do recommend it. Play sound when participants join or leave. I have that on, and then I have it, the sound can only be heard by me, the host. The reason that I recommend this is unless you have your participant list up during class, you won't know if someone joins or leaves your class. So you'll get a little sound in your ear that someone has either joined or left, and then you can see on your participants list who has. When each participant joins by telephone, record and play their own voice. We want that on and click save. That way then if someone says, John 7 is his name, you don't have a John in your class, you can remove that person from your class. File transfer. So this is up to you. Most of the time you probably will not be sending anything. So I would turn that one off. And then feedback to Zoom we're going to have off. Display end a meeting experience off. Allow host to put attendee on hold. So what that does is if you have a student that maybe is acting up in a group setting, you can put them on hold. So it removes them from the class just for a little bit. So if you want to use that, go ahead and put that one on. Always show meeting control toolbar. That is an optional one. If you want that, the little toolbar to always show, slide that on. Show Zoom windows during screen share. So when you're sharing your screen to somebody, you can show your other Zoom windows if you want. Kind of comes in handy, especially if you're watching your participant list, but it's up to you. Screen sharing, we want that to be on. Now, for working with special education students, you may want it set to all participants because then the students that you're working with would be able to share their screen with you. Or I've had a lot of email requests about maybe some interactive educational games that the students and the teachers can play or parents play amongst each other. You'll want that on so then you can give control of the screen to that student so you each can take, like if you're playing checkers, each take a turn playing. You want to have the who can start sharing when someone else is sharing, only the host. That kind of disables anyone from just sharing something. Disable desktop screen share for users. I have that one off. Annotation. So if you are going to be working normally in a classroom setting, I would say to have this off. But since you guys are pairs and you're going to be working either one-on-one or small groups, you may want your students, if you're working on a math worksheet or English, to maybe circle all of the nouns and underline the verbs. They would be able to do this through annotation. So if this is off, your students would not be able to do that. If it's on, your students can annotate. However, they can write on anything on the screen then, so you'll want to make sure that you have a conversation about that they don't do that. Whiteboard, we're going to turn on. and we're going to auto save whiteboard content. So it'll automatically save it to the device. Click Save on that. Remote control. So during screen sharing, the person who's sharing can allow others to control their shared content. You want to make sure that one is on. That way, if you're playing the checkers, you can give control of the screen to the student and you still have your control too, and then you can remove that from the student. Nonverbal feedback is important to make sure you have it on. What that is, it's like little emojis, but not emojis like what we'd think of with kids. It's like a thumbs up, thumbs down, raising hand, saying yes, saying no. So if you would ask, can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up. And if you see one student that doesn't have a thumb up or thumb down, then you could chat with that student, or on the whiteboard write, Kara, can you hear me? I'm speaking right now, and see what they say. Allow remove participants to rejoin. So what this does is if you have removed somebody, they can rejoin. This one is, if you've kicked somebody out of the class for being bad, you may not want them to be able to join back in. However, if they would accidentally get kicked out because their internet wasn't the greatest and they lost connection, they wouldn't be able to rejoin. So I recommend leaving that one on. Breakout room. I'm not sure how much you guys will be using this. This one would be more for teachers, so we're going to skip over that one. We're going to leave remote support off. Closed captioning. It's a great idea, but somebody has to live caption in Zoom, so it doesn't automatically just caption for the kiddos. So go ahead, turn that one off. Save captions off. Far end camera control, allow another user to take control of your camera. You don't want that to happen, so have that off. Virtual background. Virtual backgrounds are fun. You can put any type of picture behind you. However, we don't have any control over what image our students select, so we want to make sure that is off, just to make sure they're not going to put something up that is inappropriate. Identify guest participants in a meeting or webinar. So if someone would come in as a guest, they would have to identify themselves. As long as you're not giving out any information like your code, no one's going to be joining, so you can click off on that one. Auto answer group in chat is off. Only show default email when sending invites is off. Use HTML is off. Allow users to select stereo audio in their client settings. I have it off. You can turn it on if you'd like. Allow users to select original sound in their client settings. That's the same. You can turn it on or turn it off. Attention tracking. When you are the teacher, so you're the host of a meeting, and it's not set up currently, but it should be because it's part of the education suite. If somebody was in Zoom, but then they went to Safari to look some things up because they got bored, you would see a little icon next to their name in the manage participants to know that their attention went someplace else. The waiting room, if you are going to be working with like one-on-one students, one right after another, I would suggest turning on the waiting room. What that does then is puts all the students in a waiting room, and even when you start the meeting, they automatically don't join. You have to invite them to join. This just keeps it so extra students aren't getting in like on a one-to-one meeting or something like that. So I recommend turning that on. And it's also one more safety feature that if you want to make sure that nobody else is getting into your class, turn that on because you'll have to invite each one of the students in. Show a join from your browser link. So they don't have to download the Zoom application. You will not have to worry about this for students that are on iPads because they already have the app. Email notifications, totally personal preference. I have attendees join meeting before host, I have it off because I don't allow that. And then when a meeting's canceled, I have on. And then I believe we are at the end. Yep. So that takes care of the settings for this one. So I'm going to end this part, and then we're going to actually, the next video will be talking about how to get into Zoom as a student into like a teacher's class. And then if you are asked by a teacher to host your own for like one-to-one or small group, how to start that.